Liam O'Connell had a solid gold Montblanc pen suspended in the air. He was 3 millimeters from signing the most lucrative contract of his life when the entire world stopped spinning. He was seated at the main table of the Summit Grill, the most exclusive and elite restaurant in Oak Ridge Hills, Toronto. Around him, 3 real estate executives awaited his signature to close a $40 million purchase. Everything was perfect. Liam's navy suit, impeccable, custom-made, no tie, but projecting the absolute power of a 32-year-old man who had conquered the city. His short, perfectly groomed beard, his dominant posture. He was the king of the world, a man who always won, a man who had overcome the greatest humiliation of his life, or so he believed. His gaze, cold and calculating, drifted for a second from the paper on the white linen table, and that's when he saw her. The impact stole the oxygen from his lungs. It was like hitting a concrete wall at 200 kilometers per hour. About 15 meters away, in the least illuminated area of the dining room, a woman was cleaning a table. The contrast was violent, almost grotesque. Amidst the elegant decor of golden tones, marble, and fine glassware, the woman wore a garish orange cleaning uniform, cheap and worn, with white collars and borders. She stood out completely. But it wasn't the uniform that paralyzed Liam. It was her, Olivia, his ex-wife. The pen slipped from Liam's fingers and hit the glass table with a dry thud, staining the million-dollar document with a thick drop of black ink. "Everything all right, Liam?" one of the executives asked, frowning. Liam didn't respond, didn't blink, didn't breathe. His dark eyes were fixed on the woman in the distance. His mind, accustomed to processing numbers and strategies in fractions of a second, collapsed before the irrational image in front of him. 9 months ago, Olivia Smith, the woman he loved with blind devotion, had thrown divorce papers in his face. She had told him she was fed up with him, that she had found someone better, someone who actually had time for her, and had left without taking a single penny, supposedly to live a luxury romance in Europe with a European heir. Liam had spent almost a year hating her, swallowing the poison of betrayal, drowning his pain in work, until he became a steel magnate, cold and untouchable. But the woman 15 meters away was not in Paris. She was not covered in jewels or wearing haute couture. Olivia was frantically, erratically scrubbing the wood of a table with a white rag, as if her life depended on removing a sauce stain. Her light brown hair, which always fell in perfect waves, was now pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her fair skin was red. Thick drops of sweat ran down her forehead and neck. She looked haggard, pale, with deep violet circles under her eyes. Her gaze fixed downwards, completely broken, and then Olivia turned sideways to reach the other end of the table. Liam's heart stopped. Beneath that suffocating, cheap, orange uniform, Olivia's belly was enormous, round, heavy, and low. A very advanced pregnancy, at least 8 months. Liam's brain did the math with lightning speed. 9 months of divorce, 8 months of pregnancy. "No," Liam murmured, his voice hoarse, barely a whisper in his throat. "Liam, Mr. O'Connell," the lawyer across the table insisted, alarmed by the cadaverous pallor that had covered the businessman's face. Liam pushed himself to his feet. The heavy oak chair screeched violently against the marble floor, attracting curious glances from a couple of nearby tables. Liam didn't care. He didn't care about the contract, or the $40 million, or his reputation. All the noise of the luxurious restaurant, the clinking of baccarat crystal glasses, the silver cutlery, the soft laughter of Toronto's elite faded, becoming a dull hum. He only saw her. Olivia paused for a second, dropped the rag on the table, and put a hand to her lower back, arching with an expression of mute pain. She was breathing through her mouth, exhausted, as if the weight of her own body and the creature she carried within were about to break her spine. This woman, who was once the owner of half his empire, the woman who walked with her head held high and a radiant smile, now looked like a cornered animal on the verge of physical collapse. Liam took the first step towards her. His fists were so clenched at his sides beneath his navy suit that his knuckles turned white. A toxic mixture of anger, confusion, and visceral panic began to boil in his veins. What the hell was happening? Where was the millionaire lover? Why was the woman who destroyed his life cleaning up other people's messes? And whose child was it that deformed her body and forced her to drag her feet? Liam walked down the central aisle, dodging a waiter. His serious, implacable, and contemplative gaze never left her. He was going to demand answers. He was going to destroy her with words if necessary. He was going to make her pay for every sleepless night. But before he could reach her, another figure intervened, blocking Olivia's path. It was Mark Sterling, the general manager of the Summit Grill, a 4-5-year-old man, in an impeccable gray suit, with a tense face and the arrogance of someone who enjoys humiliating those beneath his status. Liam stopped 3 meters away, partially hidden by a large marble column and an extravagant floral arrangement. He was close enough to hear everything, but out of his ex-wife's line of sight. Mark looked at the table Olivia had just cleaned and then ran an index finger along the wooden edge. He lifted it into the air with disgust, as if he had touched something radioactive. "Do you call this clean, Smith?" the manager hissed. His voice was low but laced with venom, designed not to disturb the wealthy customers, but perfect for destroying his employee. "I pay you to make this place sparkle, not to spread dirt around." Olivia immediately lowered her head. Liam felt a lash across his chest at that gesture. The Olivia he knew would never, under any circumstances, bow her head to anyone. She was fierce, proud, a woman who wouldn't be trampled. Now her chin touched her chest in an act of absolute submission. I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling," Olivia replied, her voice trembling, hoarse from dehydration. "I'll wipe it down with disinfectant again right away. I just got a little dizzy, just for a second." "I don't care about your lame excuses, Smith." Mark cut her off, approaching her intimidatingly. Olivia, with difficulty due to her enormous belly, took an awkward step backward. "You've been dragging yourself around the dining room all week. If you keep moving like a turtle, you're out on the street today." "No, please," she begged, looking up for the first time. Liam's eyes widened at the sight of absolute terror on the face of the woman he loved. "Mr. Sterling, please, I need this job. Rent's due Friday, and I don't have money for the clinic. I swear I'll be faster. Don't fire me. I beg you." The sound of Olivia's plea cut through Liam's chest like a jagged knife. He felt blood pumping in his ears. The anger he felt towards her just 2 minutes ago was mutating into a dark, primitive, and dangerous instinct. He wanted to kill Mark Sterling with his bare hands. "That bump you're carrying isn't my problem, Smith," Mark spat, pointing at the enormous belly under the orange uniform. "I don't give a damn if you're pregnant. No one forced you to make bad decisions. You're here to work. If you can't keep up because your child weighs you down too much, go beg on the street, which is where you belong. You have 3 minutes to make this area spotless, or you pack up your junk and get out. Understood?" The cruelty of the words resonated in the small area. A thick, silent tear rolled down Olivia's cheek, mixing with sweat. She bit her lips, holding back tears, and nodded frantically. "Yes, sir. Understood. I'll make it spotless," she murmured, grabbing the rag with uncontrollably trembling hands and beginning to rub the wood desperately, bending her body with obvious agony. Mark smiled with satisfaction, adjusting the lapels of his jacket, turning to leave, but he didn't get far. A hand the size of a dinner plate closed around his neck from behind, grabbing the fabric of his gray suit so hard that his shirt buttons threatened to pop. The manager gasped as he was violently yanked backward. He came face to face with the shadowed countenance of Liam O'Connell. Liam's eyes were no longer those of a calculating businessman. They were those of a predator, a second away from tearing his prey apart. "Got a problem with her, scum?" Liam growled, his voice resonating in a deep, lethal baritone, loud enough to instantly silence the murmuring of nearby tables. Mark paled to the color of ash. He knew Liam O'Connell. All of Toronto's elite knew the real estate magnate. He was one of the city's most important and feared clients. "Mr. O'Connell," the manager stammered, trembling under the grip that threatened to cut off his breath. "I was just correcting staff. I didn't mean to bother you." The sound of the name O'Connell had an electrical effect 2 meters away. Olivia, who was wiping the table with tear-filled eyes, froze completely. The white rag slipped from her fingers, falling in slow motion to the floor. Oxygen seemed to be sucked out of the room. Slowly, with absolute terror disfiguring her features, Olivia turned her face. Her breathing stopped. Her hands instinctively clutched the sides of her swollen belly, as if trying to shield the baby from the approaching gaze. Liam released Mark with a brutal shove, making the manager stumble and fall to his knees on the marble. But Liam no longer looked at the man on the floor. His eyes locked directly on Olivia. The silence in the restaurant was sepulchral. The gazes of the millionaires around were fixed on the scene. The tension was so thick it could be cut with crystal. Liam looked her up and down the humiliating uniform, the dark circles under her eyes, the panic in her brown eyes, and finally that enormous 8-month belly. Olivia took a step back, bumping into a tray of empty glasses a waiter had left nearby. The tray crashed to the floor. The sound of glass shattering into 1,000 pieces broke the silence like a gunshot, but neither of them flinched. They stood face to face, the betrayed millionaire and the ruined ex-wife. Liam," Olivia whispered, her lips trembling uncontrollably, backing another step, wanting to disappear, to flee, to die, before he asked the one question she had sworn never to answer. Liam took a step toward her, crushing the broken glass with his Italian shoes, his eyes burning with pain and rage. 9 months, Olivia. Liam's voice was low, harsh, and resonated in the absolute silence. 9 months since you fled. Liam lowered his gaze to her belly, the calculation flashing like a death sentence in his pupils. 8 months pregnant. Olivia covered her mouth with her hands, stifling a choked sob, backing until her back hit the wall. There was no escape. The wall she had built to protect him from the truth had just collapsed before her eyes. The silence in the Summit Grill was absolute, thick, almost suffocating. The dozens of Millionaire diners, accustomed to complaining if the wine wasn't at the exact temperature, now held their breath. No one moved a muscle. On the marble floor, Mark, the feared manager, remained on his knees, rubbing his reddened neck, paralyzed by the contained violence emanating from Liam O'Connell's navy suit, but Liam saw no one else. The entire world had shrunk to the woman cornered against the wall. Olivia, his Olivia, or the woman she once was. Liam's brain, a machine trained to devour financial data and detect fraud in seconds, was now working at lightning speed, but not with bank account numbers, with months, with dates, with memories that burned his blood. 9 exact months since that rainy afternoon when she threw the wedding rings on the granite countertop of his mansion. 9 months since she looked at him with glacial contempt, claiming he wasn't enough, that she had found a real man, a European businessman who would give her the world Liam denied her by always working. 9 months since she disappeared without a trace, blocking his calls, erasing herself from the map, and now, in front of him, a belly that screamed the impossible anatomical truth. 8 months. The clash of glances was devastating. Liam searched Olivia's brown eyes for the cold, calculating woman who had abandoned him, but he didn't find her. Instead, he only saw a wounded, terrified animal. Her thin, rough hands, once always adorned with perfect manicures and diamonds, were now red, cracked by cleaning chemicals, and clung to her bulging belly with an instinctive protective force. 8 months. Liam's voice was not a shout. It was a hoarse whisper loaded with a poison that paralyzed Olivia. "You're 8 months pregnant." Olivia swallowed. Panic squeezed her chest, cutting off her breath. Her eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. She knew Liam was brilliant. She knew he wouldn't take more than 5 seconds to do the subtraction. If she had left 9 months ago and the baby was 8 months, conception occurred exactly in the weeks leading up to the divorce, weeks in which they still shared the same bed. "Liam, please," she begged in a whisper, pressing against the wall lined with fine wood, as if she wanted to merge with it. "Go, don't make a scene here. Go away?" Liam let out a dry, humorless laugh, a sound that made the nearest waiters tremble. "Don't make a scene? You disappear. You destroy my life. You tell me you're going to Paris with a magnate who's going to treat you like a queen. And I find you cleaning filth in Toronto, starving and about to give birth." Liam took a step forward, closing the distance. His imposing figure covered Olivia with its shadow. The scent of his expensive cologne, wood and spices, hit Olivia, unearthing 1,000 memories that struck her like a sledgehammer to the stomach. "The math doesn't add up, Olivia." Liam raised his voice for the first time, a roar that echoed in the double-height ceiling of the restaurant. 9 months since I saw you, 8 months pregnant. Who was the father? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Mark from the floor tried to intervene, terrified of losing his job or the prestige of the place. "That's Mr. O'Connell. If the employee is bothering you, security can escort her out the service door immediately." Liam didn't even look at him. He turned his face just 1 millimeter, his dark eyes distilling homicidal fury. "If you open your mouth again to call her an employee or try to touch her, I swear to God I will buy this restaurant today just to have the pleasure of destroying it with you inside." "Shut up and don't move." Mark paled and cowered, shutting his mouth tightly. Olivia took advantage of that second of distraction. The instinct for survival, or rather the instinct to protect the secret that had cost her everything, took over. She couldn't let him ask questions. She couldn't let him investigate. If Liam discovered the truth, the men who had threatened her would go after him, put him in jail, or worse. With a quick movement, driven by pure adrenaline, Olivia awkwardly pushed a chair into the aisle, blocking Liam's path, and ran, or at least tried to. Running with the weight of an 8-month pregnancy in a malnourished body was more of a desperate stumble. She turned on her worn rubber heels and lunged towards the swinging kitchen doors. "Olivia!" Liam bellowed, surprise freezing him for a microsecond before his long legs reacted. She pushed open the metallic kitchen doors with both hands. The heat of the ovens, the smell of grease, seared meat, and the shouting of chefs enveloped her. She entered like an orange hurricane, stumbling among the cooks, knocking over a tray of clean vegetables. "Watch out, Olivia!" a kitchen assistant yelled, barely dodging her. "Out of the way!" was the roar that followed him. The swinging doors slammed open again with violence, hitting the wall. Liam O'Connell entered the kitchen, ignoring health regulations, ignoring the chaos he left in his wake. His designer suit didn't fit into that stainless steel and grease hell, but he advanced like a war tank. Olivia looked back over her shoulder, terror injected into her eyes. She reached the back emergency door, pushed it open with all her body weight, and stepped out into the Toronto night. The clang of the metal door closing echoed against the brick walls. The back alley of the Summit Grill was the exact flip side of the coin. If inside everything was luxury, soft music, and French perfumes, outside it reeked of rotting garbage, moisture trapped in the asphalt, and the suffocating city smog. A flickering bulb cast a sick yellow light over industrial waste bins. Olivia leaned against the cold brick wall, breathing through her mouth in hoarse gasps. Her heart pounded so hard against her ribs that she feared they would break. She clutched her belly with both hands, feeling a sharp pang at the base of her pelvis. The baby moved, kicking strongly, agitated by the stress and adrenaline flooding its mother's bloodstream. "Quiet, my love, quiet," Olivia whispered, her voice broken, closing her eyes tightly, praying that Liam hadn't followed her, praying that he would let her go. But fate and Liam O'Connell never took no for an answer. The heavy metal door was kicked open with a brutal crash. Liam stepped into the alley. The contrast of the darkness made him pause for a second until his eyes adjusted, and there he saw her, cowering by the garbage cans, dirty, trembling, wrapped in that cursed orange uniform that churned his stomach with indignation and pain. He walked towards her with slow, heavy, predatory steps. Each step echoed on the wet asphalt. Olivia lifted her chin, forcing herself to build the wall of ice that had saved her 9 months ago. She had to lie. She had to be cruel. If she showed weakness, he would dig until he found the truth of why she left him. "Go away, Liam," Olivia yelled before he was within 2 meters. "I don't want to see you. Leave me alone." Liam stopped mere centimeters from her. He was so tall that he forced her to look up. His face was tense, the veins in his neck marked by contained rage. There was no trace of the loving gentleman who used to make her breakfast on Sundays. In front of her was the Toronto Shark. "I'm not going anywhere, Olivia. Not until you tell me what the hell this means." Liam gestured abruptly with his head towards her belly. "Explain it to me, because my accountant could add up this mess better. You leave saying you hate me, that you have a magnate waiting for you. You leave without asking for alimony, without taking a single penny, supposedly to live in Europe, and 9 months later I find you mopping up vomit in a restaurant in my city, 10 kilos lighter and 8 months pregnant." Olivia clenched her fists. Her nails dug into her palms. "It's none of your business. My life isn't yours anymore." "Of course it is," Liam roared, slamming his clenched fist into the brick wall right beside Olivia's head. The impact made small pieces of mortar fall. Olivia jumped, startled, but didn't look away. "Look me in the eyes, Olivia. Tell me the truth. Is that child mine?" The question detonated in the alley. The silence that followed was only broken by their agitated breathing and the electrical hum of the broken lamp. Liam lowered his gaze to her belly. His breathing became erratic. A mixture of terrified hope and desolate fury crossed his face. If that baby was his, if his own child had been cleaning tables, starving, crawling on the floor while he closed million-dollar deals and toasted with champagne, the guilt would destroy him. Olivia saw the vulnerability in his eyes. She saw how the businessman's armor cracked for a second. It broke her soul. She wanted to hug him. She wanted to cry on his chest, staining his expensive suit, and tell him that she loved him, that she never stopped loving him, that she sold all her valuables to pay the extortionists who threatened to fabricate evidence to put him in a federal prison. She wanted to tell him the child was his, but the thugs were clear. "If he finds out, we don't just put him in jail, we kill him in jail. You leave and disappear, and if you speak, the bastard isn't born." Olivia swallowed the knot of tears, hardened her jaw, and drew strength from desperation. Her face transformed, adopting a mask of forced arrogance, cold and empty. "Don't be delusional, Liam," she said, spitting the words with a contempt that burned her throat. "The child isn't yours. It's his, the man I left you for." Liam felt a bucket of ice water poured down his neck. Physical pain shot through him. His muscles tensed until they ached. "His?" Liam let out an ironic, harsh laugh, full of disbelief and resentment. The European millionaires? And where is he? Why is a magnate's wife cleaning Mark Sterling's messes dressed in orange? Where are your luxuries, Olivia? Olivia looked away, unable to sustain the lie in front of his penetrating eyes. She looked towards the garbage. He abandoned me. She blurted out the lie, her voice trembling but maintaining the facade. It was a mistake. I was stupid. The jerk left me high and dry when I told him I was pregnant. He cancelled my cards and left me stranded. I had to come back to Toronto. I had to find any job I could to avoid starving. Liam processed every word. His eyes scanned Olivia's face like a lie detector. He noted her lip, cracked from dehydration. He noted the slump of her shoulders. He noted the shame on her face. "So that's it?" Liam murmured, stepping back half a step as if her mere proximity would contaminate him. "You traded me for a fantasy. You went to wallow with an idiot for money, and when he left you with a problem in your belly, you ended up sweeping up misery. Karma's a heartless bitch, isn't it, Olivia?" Liam's words were like daggers straight to the heart. Olivia felt like she was drowning, but she nodded slowly, accepting the punishment, accepting the hatred in the eyes of the man for whom she was sacrificing her life. "Yes, Liam," she whispered, a treacherous tear finally escaping and rolling down her dirty cheek. "I am stupid. You're right. You've seen how miserable I am. You've had your revenge. Now, please, leave. Let me keep working so I can buy diapers for my child." Liam looked at her for a long second. The hatred was evident, yes, but Liam O'Connell's intelligence wasn't dulled by anger. There was something in Olivia's voice. There was something in the way she clenched her teeth, in the way her body trembled, not from fear, but from physical pain. The pieces didn't quite fit. The interested and ruthless woman she described wouldn't ask for forgiveness with her eyes while spitting venom with her mouth. But pride is a blind monster. Liam straightened his posture, adjusted the lapels of his jacket with a calculating gesture, putting on his unbreakable steel armor once more. His face became an inexpressive, lethal mask. "I pity you, Olivia," he said, his voice cold as ice. "I hope minimum wage is enough for your pride." Without another word, Liam O'Connell turned and walked back to the restaurant's back door. He opened it forcefully, entered the kitchen, and let the metal door slam shut behind him, leaving Olivia alone in the darkness of the alley. The instant he disappeared, Olivia's knees gave out. She collapsed onto the dirty asphalt, clutching her belly tightly, and broke into a desolate, silent, gut-wrenching cry, choking on her own pain amidst the garbage. She had saved Liam once more, but inside, Liam did not walk toward the exit door. He walked directly to his table. He took out his phone and dialed a number. His instinct burned like a deafening alarm. Olivia's version was perfect, too perfect to be real, and he was going to discover the truth, no matter the cost. Liam O'Connell walked back through the swinging kitchen doors, leaving behind the inferno of heat and frying pans to re-enter the chilly, perfumed air of the Summit Grill. His face was a mask carved from granite. No one in the luxurious dining room dared to look him directly in the eyes, but everyone felt the lethal vibration emanating from his navy suit. A few meters away, by the service station, Mark Sterling, the general manager, stood rigid as a board, sweating cold and wiping his forehead with a silk handkerchief. He trembled. He knew he had crossed a line that could cost him his career. Liam ignored Mark as if he were a cockroach, crushed on the marble, and walked with long, determined strides to the central table. The three real estate executives, who had been petrified for 10 minutes, immediately straightened up upon his arrival. The lead lawyer, a gray-haired man in a gray suit, forced a nervous smile and pushed the ink-stained contract to the center of the glass table. "Liam, good to have you back," the lawyer said, clearing his throat, pretending the scene of physical violence and public humiliation he had just witnessed had never happened. "I suppose it was a misunderstanding with staff. Let's continue. Here's the pen. Just your signature left to close the acquisition of the Summit Grill for the agreed $40 million. Liam stood in front of the oak chair. He did not pick up the solid gold Montblanc pen. He didn't even look down at the paper. His dark, turbulent eyes scanned the ostentatious restaurant ceiling, the crystal chandeliers, the mahogany walls, and finally fixed on the service door through which Olivia had fled. That image kept him from breathing. His ex-wife, the haughty woman who demanded hothouse roses every Friday, hidden among the garbage in an alley, terrified, protecting an 8-month belly. Something was disgustingly wrong with that entire equation. "The deal is off," Liam blurted out. His voice was low, flat, cutting the air like a guillotine. The three men at the table opened their eyes wide. The gray-haired lawyer jumped to his feet, paling. "What? Liam? For God's sake, we've been negotiating this for 3 months. The price is a bargain. The market is at an all-time high. You can't back out now over an altercation with a waitress. We'll give you an additional discount. How about it? 5% off for the trouble. Liam placed both hands on the glass table and leaned his large frame toward the executives. The silent threat in his posture made the 3 men instinctively recoil in their chairs. "You're not listening to me," Liam said, enunciating each syllable with chilling slowness. "I don't want the restaurant. I'm no longer interested in buying the commercial premises." He paused, letting panic settle on the sellers' faces before delivering the final blow. "I want the entire building." The silence at the table was absolute. The lawyer blinked, unable to process the twist. "The commercial tower, Liam? That's not for sale. And even if it were, we're talking about more than $200 million. The owners won't give up the main property. Everything has a price." Liam cut him off, straightening up and buttoning his jacket with a dry movement. "Offer them $250 million. A resting $250 million. Cash. Immediate transfer in 4 hours. Close the deal to before midnight. $250 million. That's insane, Liam. You're brutally overpaying. No analyst would approve this whim. Why the hell do you want the entire building? Liam turned his head slightly and fixed his killer gaze directly on Mark Sterling, who stood petrified in the distance, half listening to the conversation. "Because as the restaurant owner, I'm a mere investor. As the building owner, I am God. In this piece of land," Liam raised his voice enough for the manager to hear him, "and my first divine order will be that the Summit Grill has a new owner. A new contract will be drafted, and the first non-negotiable clause demands the immediate dismissal of Mark Sterling, without severance, without a letter of recommendation. And if he dares to sue, I'll use my entire corporate legal team to ensure he never gets another job, not even cleaning toilets at a gas station. Was I clear?" The lawyer swallowed hard, nodding frantically, terrified by the display of pure, unhinged power Liam had just unleashed. "Crystal clear, Liam. I'll draft the offer immediately." Liam turned and walked towards the main exit of the restaurant. As he moved between the tables, he pulled out his cell phone and dialed the only number that mattered to him at that moment. It wasn't his assistant's or his bank's. It was Agent Davis, his head of security and private investigator, an ex-military intelligence specialist who could find a ghost at the bottom of the sea if paid enough. "Davis," came the response on the second ring. "Mr. O'Connell." "Davis, drop whatever you're doing. I need you to deploy all your men right now," Liam ordered, pushing open the heavy glass doors of the restaurant and stepping out into the warm Toronto night. "I want a full report on Olivia Smith, my ex-wife." "Sir, I thought that matter was closed 9 months ago when she went to Paris." "She never made it to Paris, Davis. I just saw her. She's here in Oak Ridge Hills. She's working as a cleaner, and she's 8 months pregnant." There was a tense silence on the other end of the line. Davis, accustomed to extreme situations, immediately knew the gravity of the matter from the fractured tone in his boss's voice. "Understood, sir. What perimeter am I searching?" "Everything," Liam growled, getting into the back of his armored SUV as his driver closed the door. "I want her bank accounts. I want medical records from public and private hospitals. I want security footage from ATMs. I want to know where she sleeps, what she eats, who she talks to, and what the hell she's done every single damn day since she walked out of my mansion 9 months ago. I want to know who the lover who supposedly impregnated her is, or if he ever even existed. That requires tapping into secure systems, boss. It's expensive and takes time. I don't care about the cost," Liam shouted, slamming his clenched fist against the back of the passenger seat, making the interior of the SUV tremble. "I pay you to bring me truths, not excuses. I want her laid bare on paper, and I want that damn file on my desk before dawn. If you don't have it by 6 a.m., you're fired." "Yes, sir." On it, Liam ended the call and tossed the phone onto the leather seat beside him. He covered his face with both hands, rubbing his eyes in desperation. The image of Olivia in the alley, trembling, humiliated, rubbing her belly with her cracked hands, replayed in his mind like a horror movie on a loop. "I pity you," he had told her. Liam clenched his teeth until his jaw ached. If the child belonged to that stupid millionaire, he himself would see to it that both of them were ruined. But if the numbers added up, if that 8-month belly was the result of their last nights together, Liam knew in that instant that the world was going to burn. The discovery of the abyss. It was 4:15 inches the morning. The main office of O'Connell Holdings, on the 40th floor of one of Toronto's tallest towers, was shrouded in gloom. Only Liam's desk lamp cast a cone of cold light over the immense tempered glass table. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city sleeping, a carpet of orange and white lights that seemed infinite. Liam hadn't taken off his suit. He had been pacing for hours like a caged lion, drinking black coffee that already tasted like acid in his empty stomach. He couldn't close his eyes without seeing Olivia's terrified gaze. The sound of the electronic door opening broke the silence of the early morning. Agent Davis entered. He wore a dark leather jacket, and his face, weathered by years in the military, looked unusually pale and tense. In his hands, he carried a thick, bulging manila envelope that seemed to weigh a ton. Liam stopped dead, his breathing quickened. "Tell me you have it, Davis." Davis advanced to the desk and dropped the envelope onto the glass with a dry, heavy, definitive thud. He didn't look Liam in the eyes. "I have it, sir. We tracked everything. We cross-referenced CRA data, social insurance records, city surveillance cameras, and hacked her cancelled card history. I have everything." Liam approached the desk, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for the envelope. "Who is the guy?" he asked, his voice hoarse, refusing to open the package. "Who is the European? Where is the coward who left her like this hiding?" Davis swallowed and crossed his hands behind his back at attention, adopting a strictly professional tone to cushion the blow. "There is no European, Mr. O'Connell. There never was a magnate. We checked global airline and migratory databases. Olivia Smith has not left Toronto in the last 9 months. She didn't even step foot in an airport." The story of the millionaire lover in Paris was a fabricated lie. Liam felt the air snatched from his lungs. His fingers brushed the edge of the envelope. "A lie," he whispered, feeling a sharp buzzing in his ears. "Then why did she leave me? Why did she leave the house screaming that she hated me?" "Open the envelope, boss. You won't like the answers." Liam tore open the manila paper violently. A stack of color-printed photographs and dozens of financial documents fell scattered across the illuminated glass. The first photograph hit Liam directly in the center of his chest. It showed Olivia in an old, worn sweater walking on a broken sidewalk in Willow Creek Annex, one of the city's most marginalized and dangerous areas. She carried plastic bags from the supermarket, and her belly was already very evident. In the second photo, Olivia was climbing a rusty spiral staircase, clinging to the metal railing with an expression of absolute exhaustion. "These are captures from neighborhood security cameras from 2 weeks ago," Davis explained, pointing to the image. "That's her current address. She lives in a 12 sq meter rooftop room made of corrugated iron and cement. The bathroom is shared with 4 other tenants. She pays $1,500 a month in rent and is 2 months behind." "My God," Liam exclaimed, stepping back, putting a hand to his chest as if he had been shot. "She was my wife. She owned all of this. Why is she living in poverty? Why didn't she take money from their joint accounts before the divorce? I never blocked her cards until she disappeared." Davis slid a bank statement onto the glass, pushing it towards Liam. The numbers were highlighted in yellow fluorescent marker. "Sir, she emptied her personal accounts 3 days before filing for divorce. She sold her Mercedes car. She pawned all her jewelry, including the 5-carat engagement ring you gave her. She sold off her designer handbags and branded clothes to pawn shops below their real value. In less than 72 hours, she amassed almost T H M A D E N O S E N S E. 4 million in cash. Liam's brain collapsed. The financial mathematical sense. 4 million, and she's living in a corrugated iron rooftop room. Starving? That's impossible. Drugs? Gambling? What did she spend the money on? Davis shook his head slowly, and the compassion in his tough military eyes was what truly terrified Liam. She didn't spend it, sir. She transferred it. Every last cent. Davis pointed to a sheet of encrypted electronic transfers that his team had managed to decrypt that same morning. A single deposit of $3.9 million appears to a ghost account in the Cayman Islands. We traced the parent account using federal intelligence contacts. That offshore account doesn't belong to any lover, Mr. O'Connell. It belongs to the frontmen for Robert Dubois and Michael Thorne. The names of the two men detonated in Liam's head, like an atomic bomb. Robert and Michael, his former majority partners, the men Liam had discovered committing massive fraud in the construction company a year ago. Liam had expelled them from the company in a brutal board meeting, stripping them of their percentage and threatening to send them to a maximum security prison if they ever came near his empire again. What does Olivia have to do with Robert and Michael? Liam felt the room spinning, the cold light of the lamp burning his eyes. We checked the security cameras on your mansion's perimeter from 9 months ago, exactly 2 days before Miss Olivia filed for divorce. Do you remember you were on a business trip in New York that week? Liam nodded mechanically. Cold sweat began to bead on his forehead. Davis pulled one last photograph from the bottom of the envelope. It was dark, grainy, taken by a street camera, but the image was unmistakable. It showed the wrought iron entrance to the O'Connell mansion, and there, standing at the door, intercepting Olivia, who had just gotten out of her car, were Robert and Michael, flanked by 2 armed men. They intercepted her when she was alone. "Sir," Davis said, his voice grave and somber. "According to underworld informants I contacted an hour ago, Robert and Michael possessed enough forged documents and bought witnesses to incriminate you for the fraud they committed. The false evidence was perfect, Liam. If they presented it to a federal judge, you wouldn't just lose the company, you'd spend 20 years in a maximum security prison." Liam's knees buckled. He had to grab the edge of the glass desk to keep from falling to the floor. Air wouldn't enter his lungs. They extorted Olivia. Davis continued relentlessly, uncovering the pit of horror. They demanded $4 million in cash to hand over the only copy of that false evidence and leave you alone. And they added one more condition. She had to divorce you and disappear. If you tried to find the extortionists, or if she told you a single word of the blackmail, they would kill you and her. The silence that filled the 40th floor office was deafening. Liam looked down at the scattered photos. Olivia walking in the torn sweater. Olivia sleeping on a mattress on the floor. Olivia cleaning tables at the Summit Grill for tips to pay $1,500 in rent. She hadn't betrayed him. She hadn't left with another man. She had abandoned him to save his life and his empire. She had taken on the role of the cruel villain, enduring his hatred and resentment for 9 months, because it was the only way to protect him. She sold every last drop of her dignity to pay the ransom for Liam's freedom, and the baby, oh God, the baby. Liam covered his mouth with his hand, stifling a guttural sob, a sound that seemed torn from the depths of his soul. Hot, furious tears welled in his dark eyes, falling onto the glass desk and staining the financial documents. If there was no European lover, if she had never been with another man, if the 9 months coincided perfectly with the last week they slept together before she signed the divorce, the baby. Liam's voice broke into 1,000 pieces, choking on tears. He fell to his knees on the grey carpet of his luxury office, clutching his chest, shattered by the level of sacrifice his wife had made. The baby is mine. That child is mine. The most powerful man in the city, the ruthless businessman who felt no pity for anyone, collapsed to the floor, crying like a child, realizing what he had done. He had humiliated the mother of his child. He had left her alone in a dark alley, rubbing her tired belly while he looked at her with disgust. Davis stepped forward, kneeling beside him. "Mr. O'Connell, get up. We have a much worse problem." Liam looked up, his eyes red and his face stained with tears. What could be worse than this nightmare? Davis handed him one last paper, a medical report from a community clinic. When we traced her medical visits, we discovered this. Miss Smith didn't go to work at the Summit Grill today. Her shift supervisor sent her to the public clinic 3 hours ago. Her severe malnutrition and the extreme stress she was subjected to last night caused fatal complications. Olivia has severe preeclampsia. Liam felt the world completely stop. She's in the emergency room at Royal Canada Hospital, and the doctors say she and the baby won't make it past tonight. Liam O'Connell doesn't remember standing up. He doesn't remember crossing the glass doors of his corporate office, nor the dizzying descent in the private elevator from the 40th floor. His mind had fractured, leaving only space for a primitive and desperate instinct. Reach her. The elevator doors opened in the underground parking lot. The keys. Give me the damn keys. Liam roared, snatching the armored SUV's remote from his chauffeur, who recoiled, startled, against the concrete wall. Davis ran after him, jumping into the passenger seat, just as the SUV's V8 engine roared with deafening ferocity. Tires screeched against the polished pavement, leaving a trail of black smoke and burning rubber as Liam sped toward the exit ramp. The speedometer needles shot up. It was 4:32 inches the morning. The streets of Toronto were empty, shrouded in the grey mist of dawn. Liam drove like a possessed man, running red lights, crossing main avenues at over 160 kilometers per hour. His hands gripped the leather-wrapped steering wheel so hard that his knuckles seemed about to burst through his skin. In his head, the words from the night before repeated like relentless torture. "I pity you, Olivia. I hope minimum wage is enough for your pride." Liam let out a choked cry, a guttural sound that resonated inside the luxury cabin. He hit his chest with a clenched fist, trying to tear out the physical pain that crushed his lungs. "It was me, Davis," Liam cried, his voice torn by tears. "It was me who pushed her to the limit. Yesterday, I cornered her in that alley. I yelled that she was garbage. I let that imbecile manager humiliate her in front of me. She was saving my life, and I was destroying her." Davis, clinging to the grab handle due to the vehicle's suicidal speed, pulled out his phone. "Sir, focus on the road. I've already contacted the head of surgery at Northwood Medical Center. I have 3 private specialists en route to Royal Canada. They have orders to transfer her to the country's best intensive care suite as soon as we arrive. Money will not be an issue." "I don't give a damn about money," Liam roared, his eyes bloodshot, tears blurring his vision. "If she dies, Davis, if my son isn't born, I'll burn the entire city down, starting with myself." In the distance, the emergency lights of Royal Canada Hospital cut through the darkness. It was an enormous, grey building, worn by time and lack of budget. A place saturated with pain and deficiencies, the exact opposite of the marble and gold world Liam had lived in, while his pregnant wife cleaned tables to survive. Liam braked the SUV abruptly, invading the ambulance lane, and got out before the engine completely stopped. He ran towards the emergency doors. The impact of reality inside the hospital was like being hit in the stomach with a baseball bat. The waiting room was a suffocating chaos. Dozens of people slept on hard plastic chairs, women crying in corners, the smell of cheap disinfectant mixed with sweat and sickness. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting a deathly pallor on the peeling walls. Liam stormed through the room, pushing people aside without a second thought. His imposing figure in his designer navy suit, now wrinkled and tireless, violently contrasted with the misery of the place. He reached the reception counter, a dirty armored glass, behind which an exhausted nurse typed on an old computer. "Olivia Smith," Liam demanded, slamming his open palm on the glass. "Where is she?" "She was admitted 3 hours ago." The nurse looked up, irritated. "Sir, please be quiet. This is a hospital. You have to take a number and wait." "I won't wait a damn second," Liam bellowed, his voice echoing throughout the emergency room, making the security guards at the door stand alert. "I am Liam O'Connell. I will buy this entire hospital and fire you and every damn executive if you don't tell me what bed my wife is in within the next 5 seconds. Davis arrived right behind him, showing his military ID and intervening before the guards drew their batons. "It's a critical emergency, ma'am. Patient with severe preeclampsia. Olivia Smith, please." The nurse paled at the men's tone and quickly checked the screen. "Trauma area at the end of the hallway, past the red doors. But you can't go in there. It's restricted access." Liam didn't wait for her to finish the sentence. He ran towards the double red doors, pushing them open with both arms. The trauma area was an inferno of movement, machines beeping frantically, nurses running with IV bags, doctors shouting orders. And there, in bed number 4, separated only by a stained fabric curtain, he found her. Liam's world stopped. Oxygen left the room. Olivia lay on the white sheets, pale as marble. Her lips, once full and rosy, now had a bluish, cracked hue. She had oxygen tubes in her nose and 3 IVs stuck in her thin, bruised arms. The disgusting orange cleaning uniform had been cut with scissors to place the monitors. revealing her enormous 8-month belly. But what ultimately broke Liam's soul was not the tubes or the machines, it was seeing her hands. Olivia's hands, hanging limply at the sides of the bed, were covered in sores, cuts, and chemical burns from using industrial bleach without protective gloves. The man who controlled the financial destiny of half the country fell to his knees beside the cheap metal bed. "My love," Liam whispered, his voice broken, choking on his own tears. "Olivia, my God, what did they do to you? What did I let them do to you?" He took one of those battered hands, bringing it to his lips and kissing every scar, every burn, bathing her skin with fervent tears. Forgive me, my life, please. Don't leave me. I beg you, don't leave me." The heart monitor alarms above the bed began to beep with a sharp, rapid, terrifying cadence. The green line went up and down erratically. "Sir, you have to leave now," a nurse shouted, trying to pull Liam away from the gurney. "I'm not letting her go," Liam roared, clinging to his wife's hand, as if it were a lifesaver in the middle of the ocean. A young doctor with a wrinkled scrub, deep dark circles under his eyes, and a face hardened by 1,000 lost battles in the emergency room, pushed his way through the curtains. It was Dr. Ramirez, the head resident. "Clear the area. Prepare 100 milligrams of IV labetalol. Her pressure is already at 190/120, the doctor ordered, checking the monitor screen before fixing his furious eyes on Liam. "Who the hell are you, and what are you doing in my trauma area?" "Security! Get him out of here!" Davis intercepted the guards at the curtain entrance, forming an impenetrable wall with his body. Liam slowly stood up, without letting go of Olivia's hand. His dark eyes, flooded with tears, reflected the ferocity of a wounded lion. "I am Liam O'Connell. She is my wife, and it is my child in her womb." "Doctor." Ramirez stopped dead, looked at Liam's $1,000 suit, looked at his Swiss watch, and then looked at the malnourished, dirty, and shattered patient, wearing a cheap janitor's uniform. Indignation crossed the doctor's face like lightning. "The husband." The doctor let out a bitter, dry, contemptuous laugh, taking a step closer to Liam until he was centimeters from his face. He didn't care about the magnate's money or aura of power. In his emergency room, he was the ultimate authority. "Where the hell have you been for the last 8 months, Mr. O'Connell?" The bluntness of the question hit Liam squarely in the face. He wanted to answer, wanted to explain the deception, his partner's extortion, the damn pride that had blinded him. But the words died in his throat. Everything sounded like empty excuses in front of his wife's agonizing body. "I was an idiot," Liam managed to articulate, his voice broken by absolute regret. "I was blind, but I'm here now. I have the 3 best specialists from Northwood Medical Center waiting outside. I demand she be transferred immediately. I've already ordered a medical helicopter. I'm taking her to private intensive care." "Doctor." Ramirez shook his head, his expression turning somber, almost ominous. "Keep your wallet, Mr. O'Connell. You cannot transfer her anywhere. If I move her from this bed, if I put her in an ambulance or a helicopter, your wife will go into cardiac arrest before reaching the parking lot, and the baby will suffocate in minutes. You stay here." Liam felt his blood run cold. Raw, suffocating panic completely paralyzed him. "What's wrong with her?" Liam whispered, terror disfiguring his features. "Tell me exactly what she has and how I fix it." "Doctor." Ramirez picked up a gray aluminum folder at the foot of the bed and threw it against Liam's chest. Liam caught it by instinct. "Read it yourself, since you seem to have answers for everything. It's not just preeclampsia, O'Connell," the doctor spat, adjusting Olivia's oxygen mask. "Your wife is dying of chronic exhaustion and severe malnutrition. Her hemoglobin level is 7. She's anemic. This woman's body has been consuming itself to keep the baby alive." Liam opened the folder. The medical numbers danced before his eyes, but the paramedics' notes on the margin, who picked her up at the restaurant, were direct daggers to his heart. "Patient found unconscious. 1 4-hour daily work shifts on her feet. Minimal caloric intake in recent months. Severe post-traumatic stress. I checked her belongings looking for an emergency contact," the doctor continued, pointing to a cheap, torn fabric bag in the corner of the room. "She didn't have a penny to buy a bottle of water, Mr. O'Connell, but she had her pawn shop receipts. She's been pawning even her shoes to pay for consultations at a neighborhood clinic, making sure the baby received the vitamins she wasn't consuming." Liam awkwardly walked to the plastic chair, picked up Olivia's old fabric bag, and opened it with trembling hands. Inside there was no designer makeup or gold cards. There was a mended sweater, an empty Tupperware with leftover white rice, 3 crumpled pawn receipts, and in a protective plastic envelope, perfectly cared for. Unlike the rest of her belongings, a black and white ultrasound. Liam pulled out the image. It was a perfect profile, the small nose, the forehead, the miracle of life breaking through the hell she had endured in solitude. On the bottom edge, in Olivia's cursive handwriting, was a phrase written in blue ink, "For your daddy to be safe, my love." Liam's cries erupted uncontrollably, shattering any facade of a tough man he had left. He collapsed onto the bed, embracing Olivia's swollen belly, staining the white sheet with his tears of agony. "Wake up, please, Olivia, wake up," Liam cried, caressing his wife's cold face. "I know everything now. I know what you did for me. I know you sold your life to save me from those bastards. Don't die, for God's sake. Don't leave me this empty empire without you." Dr. Ramirez watched him, the anger slowly dissolving at the raw magnate's pain, understanding that the story behind that tragedy was much darker than simple abandonment. "Mr. O'Connell," the doctor said, his voice lowering, adopting a cold, clinical urgency. "Her blood pressure isn't yielding. Olivia's kidneys are starting to fail from the preeclampsia." Liam looked up, his eyes swollen. "What does that mean?" The doctor looked at the monitors, then at Olivia's belly. "It means your wife's body can no longer sustain the pregnancy. The extreme stress she suffered last night was the final trigger. The placenta is detaching." The sharp, continuous sound of the fetal monitor began to beep in the small room, filling the space with the warning of imminent death. The baby's heart rate was dropping drastically. "Code red in room 4. Dr. Ramirez shouted toward the hallway, his voice cutting the air with the authority of controlled panic. "Stop operating room 2. Call neonatology immediately." The swinging doors burst open. 4 nurses rushed in, unlocking the brakes on Olivia's gurney. "Where are you taking her?" Liam stood in the way, terrified, refusing to let go of her hand. "To the operating room. O'Connell!" the doctor yelled, pushing him aside. "We have to get that child out in the next 10 minutes, or both of them will die on this gurney. Quick, push!" Liam ran alongside the gurney down the long hallway illuminated by white fluorescent lights. The wheels screeched against the linoleum floor. Olivia remained unconscious, her head swaying with the movement, her breathing shallow and irregular. "I love you. I love you with my whole life. Resist, my love," Liam whispered in her ear, running beside her until they reached the heavy metal doors of the surgical area. "This far, Mr. O'Connell." A robust security guard blocked his path with both arms. The double doors slammed shut. Through the small glass in the door, Liam watched as Olivia's gurney disappeared under the powerful operating room lights. He stood there in the empty hallway, his hands stained with his wife's cold sweat, his son's crumpled ultrasound in his fist, and his soul hanging by a thread. The man who yesterday thought he controlled everything, today could only beg on his knees for destiny to give him a chance to redeem himself. The hallway outside the operating rooms was an endless tunnel of white, cold, aseptic light. Liam O'Connell, the man who made the country's most ruthless boardrooms tremble, sat on the linoleum floor with his back against the wall, staring intently at his own hands. They were stained with blood, Olivia's blood. The clock hanging above the double metal doors showed 5:47 a.m. He had been in pure agony for an hour and 15 minutes. Every second that the red surgery in progress light remained on, he felt a hydraulic press crushing his ribs. Davis, standing stoically a couple of meters away, maintained his guard, rejecting urgent calls from the company. Nothing mattered. Liam's real estate empire could burn to the ground at that very instant, and he wouldn't care in the slightest. The sepulchral silence of the hallway was ripped apart by the sound of hurried footsteps and someone's agitated breathing. The doors at the end burst open. A robust woman in her 50s crossed the threshold. She wore her street clothes haphazardly over the Summit Grill uniform. Her face was bathed in sweat and tears. It was Sarah, Olivia's fellow waitress, the only person who had shown a shred of humanity towards her in that restaurant hell. "Olivia, where is Olivia Smith?" Sarah cried, her voice echoing off the sterile walls, desperately searching for a nurse. "They called me from the night shift. They said she was brought in code red." Davis stepped forward to intercept her as per security protocol, but Liam raised a trembling hand from the floor, silently ordering him to let her pass. Liam recognized the woman. He had seen her out of the corner of his eye last night, watching terrified from the kitchen as Mark humiliated his ex-wife. Sarah stopped dead at the sight of the magnate sprawled on the hospital floor. Her gaze shifted from absolute surprise to a simmering, deep, visceral hatred. She didn't care about Liam's expensive suit, nor the presence of the giant bodyguard. She advanced until she stood in front of him, pointing a trembling finger. You, Sarah spat with a contempt that made Liam look up. You're the bastard from last night, the $2,000 monster. You came to finish the job. You came to see if the humiliation you put her through last night finally killed her. Liam swallowed. The knot in his throat was so big he could barely breathe. He slowly stood up, leaning against the wall. He didn't defend himself. He didn't raise his voice. His bloodshot eyes and face, distorted by pain, caught Sarah by surprise. But the woman did not back down. "I'm her husband," Liam said, his voice reduced to a hoarse, fractured whisper. "I'm the baby's father." Sarah's eyes widened. The impact of the revelation seemed to paralyze her for a second. Then she let out a bitter, dry, venomous laugh. "The husband? Where the hell was the husband when that girl cried until she vomited in the restaurant bathroom because she didn't even have money for Tylenol? Where was Father of the Year when she ate leftovers from customers' plates? Because she hadn't eaten in 3 days so she could pay for the clinic." Every word from Sarah was a point-blank shot straight to Liam's chest. He already knew the cold facts thanks to Davis. He knew about the extortion from his former partners. He knew about the $4 million transferred to the Cayman Islands. He knew about the death threat that forced her to pretend she didn't love him. But the rawness of what Olivia had lived day after day, the physical reality of her sacrifice, was gutting him alive. I didn't know," Liam whispered, closing his eyes tightly, letting tears well up again. "She lied to me to protect me. I thought she had abandoned me for another." "Of course she protected you, you blind fool." Sarah erupted, hitting Liam's chest with both hands, an act for which Davis would have broken necks under any other circumstances. But Liam let himself be hit, receiving the punishment he felt he deserved. That girl came looking for work 8 months ago, trembling like a leaf. She was terrified that men in black suits would find her. She hid every time a luxury car passed down the avenue. She sold her coats in the middle of December to buy cheap blankets. And all the damn time, she stroked her belly and whispered to her baby that everything would be all right, that the sacrifice was worth it because his daddy was safe. Liam covered his face with his hands, sobbing uncontrollably, his shoulders trembling violently. "I lent her money for bus fare," Sarah continued, her own voice breaking with tears. "I begged her to rest, not to carry the heavy trays, but she said she couldn't, that if they kicked her out of that rooftop room, the baby would be born on the street. And yesterday when you appeared, I saw her soul fall to the floor. You were the hero of her stories, the man she was letting herself starve for, and you looked at her with disgust. You let Mark treat her like garbage." "Enough," Liam begged, falling to his knees again, shattered into 1,000 pieces, his forehead touching the cold hospital floor. "Please, enough. I was an idiot. I was a coward blinded by pride. I would give my entire life at this damn instant to be on that operating table instead of her." Sarah looked down at the most powerful man in the city, reduced to ashes by the weight of his own arrogance. The woman's fury slowly transformed into deep pity. She knelt halfway and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Well, pray to God she's stronger than your pride, Mr. O'Connell," Sarah whispered harshly, "because last night, after you left, I found her lying in the garbage alley. She was losing blood. She told me she couldn't take it anymore. She told me, at least he hates me enough not to look for me ever again. He's safe now." The metallic sound of the double doors opening interrupted the sentence. The red surgery light went out. Liam sprang from the floor, wiping his tear-stained face. His breathing completely stopped. Dr. Ramirez emerged from the operating room. His green scrub was stained with dark blood. He removed his surgical mask, revealing a face haggard from exhaustion, bathed in sweat. He sighed deeply and looked at Liam. "Doctor?" Liam could barely utter the word, absolute terror chilling his blood. The doctor nodded slowly. "We lost her twice on the table. We had to use the defibrillator." The doctor paused, measuring his words in front of the magnate on the verge of collapse. "But your wife has the survival instinct of a wild animal, defending its young. She survived the emergency C-section, and we managed to stop the internal bleeding." Liam let out a choked cry, leaning against the wall, feeling his soul return to his body. Sarah covered her mouth, breaking into tears of relief. "And my son?" Liam asked, his heart pounding 1,000 beats per hour. "The baby is alive." "It's a boy," the doctor replied, forcing a slight, compassionate smile. "Premature, underweight, and with severe respiratory difficulties. He's just been intubated and transferred to the neonatal intensive care unit in an incubator. The battle has just begun for him, but he is breathing, Mr. O'Connell. Your wife, against all medical and human odds, managed to keep him alive long enough. I want to see her. I need to see her right now," Liam demanded, desperation injecting new energy into him. "She's in the post-operative recovery room. She's just regaining consciousness from the anesthesia," the doctor warned. "She's extremely weak. A strong scare or a spike in stress right now could cause a heart attack. Go in alone and for God's sake, try not to upset her." Liam nodded frantically, left Sarah crying, hugged by Davis, gently pushed open the doors of the sterile hallway and walked towards the room at the end. He was going to get his family back. The recovery room was dimly lit. The only sound was the rhythmic, constant, miraculous beep of the heart monitor. It smelled of iodine, strong disinfectant, and freshly laundered sheets. Liam stopped at the threshold, feeling the air thicken. Olivia was in the center bed. She looked like a broken porcelain doll. Her skin had a translucent pallor. Her hair was matted to her forehead with cold sweat, and her arms, bruised from IV lines for the blood transfusion, rested inertly on the white blankets. The immense bulge of her belly had disappeared, leaving a bandaged flatness that evidenced the brutal procedure she had just undergone. Liam advanced slowly, terrified that the sound of his shoes would break the fragile bubble of life that kept his wife breathing. He stopped beside the metal railing of the bed. He observed the face he had loved every day of his adult life, the face he had hated for 9 months, because of a lie fabricated to save his life. The level of devotion this woman had shown him was something he, with all his power and money, could never repay in 1,000 lifetimes. Slowly, as if her eyelids weighed tons of lead, Olivia began to react. Her eyelashes trembled, her brown eyes opened, disoriented, clouded by narcotics, trying to focus on the gray ceiling of the room. Her gaze slowly lowered and met the figure in the navy suit, standing by her bed. Olivia's entire body tensed suddenly. Terror returned to her eyes with the force of a tsunami. The heart rate monitor began to beep drastically faster. Olivia tried to sit up, ignoring the throbbing, searing pain of the C-section stitches in her abdomen. "No, no," Olivia whispered, her voice sounding like sandpaper, raising a weak hand to push Liam's chest. "Liam, go, get out of here. Calm down, my love, calm down, don't move." Liam held her by the shoulders with extreme delicacy, gently forcing her back onto the pillows. "You don't understand," Olivia sobbed, breathing heavily, tears of pure panic overflowing down her pale cheeks. "They're going to see you. If they know you're with me, if they suspect you found out something, they'll put you in jail. They have proof, Liam. They'll destroy you. They'll kill you. Please, get out. Pretend I don't exist. Hate me, but go." The level of sacrifice shattered him. Even now, freshly operated, having been a minute from death, her only instinct, her only thought was to protect him. The real estate magnate, the man who never lowered his gaze to anyone in the country, fell heavily to his knees on the floor of the room. The sound of the thud echoed off the 4 walls. Liam intertwined his clean, large hands with his wife's small, cracked, and bruised hands. He clung to them and rested his forehead against the metal railing of the bed, surrendering completely. "It's over, Olivia," Liam said, raising his tear-streaked face, his voice firm, but charged with absolute devotion. "The hell is over. I know everything." Olivia stopped struggling. The heart monitor abruptly stabilized its rhythm, as if her heart had skipped a beat. "What? What? What?" she stammered, unable to believe it. "I know everything," Liam repeated, squeezing her hands and kissing her injured knuckles. "I know the names. Robert Dubois, Michael Thorne. I know about the account in the Cayman Islands, and I know about the thugs who intercepted you at the mansion gate. I know you sold your rings, your clothes, your entire world to pay the ransom for my freedom. I know you left me knowing I would hate you, just to save my life." The impact of Liam's words broke Olivia's last wall of resistance. The icy mask she had worn for 9 months of agony and humiliation completely crumbled. A primitive sob, laden with pain, loneliness, and relief, escaped her throat. "I was so scared, Liam," Olivia cried, clutching her husband's hand with all her strength. "Every day I thought they were going to hurt you. When you yelled at me in the alley last night, I thought I had lost you forever. You never lost me." Liam rose from the floor, sitting on the edge of the bed, and carefully put his arms around Olivia's shoulders, drawing her to his chest. He hugged her as if she were the most fragile crystal in the universe. "I never stopped loving you, not for a single second, even when pride blinded me. Forgive me for doubting you. Forgive me for not seeing that the love of my life was sacrificing herself for me. Forgive me for letting you fall into such misery." Olivia buried her face in Liam's stained and wrinkled shirt, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne, feeling safe for the first time in almost a year. They cried together, clinging to each other in that gloomy hospital room, purging the poison of separation. After a few minutes, Olivia pulled away slightly, her eyes injected with sudden panic. Her hands instinctively flew to her flat belly. "The baby," she gasped, terrified. "Liam, my baby. No, tell me I didn't lose him. He's alive." Liam smiled through his tears, caressing his wife's sweaty hair, looking at her with the greatest adoration a man could profess. "Our son is alive, my love. He's a warrior just like his mother. He's in the incubator recovering, but he's alive and safe." Olivia closed her eyes and let her head fall onto the pillows, emitting a sigh of relief that emptied all the air from her lungs. "Our son," she murmured with an exhausted smile across her haggard face. Liam looked at her in silence for a few seconds. Love and guilt swirled within him, but were quickly replaced by a different, darker, colder energy. The men who had done this to his wife, the cowards who forced her to clean garbage, 8 months pregnant, under death threats, were going to pay in blood. This was no longer about corporate business. This was a personal war, and Liam O'Connell was going to use the full weight of his empire to wipe them off the face of the earth. "You're going to rest now," Liam whispered, kissing her forehead. "You're going to get strong for our son. I promise you on my own life that no one in this damn world will ever touch you again. The fear ends today." Olivia opened her eyes, noticing the murderous glint in her husband's pupils. She knew Liam. She knew the man of steel was about to unleash his true power. "Liam, what are you going to do?" Liam stood up, adjusting his ruined suit, adopting a posture that projected unbreakable, dark, and lethal power. "Robert and Michael think they stole my empire by blackmailing my wife," Liam replied, his voice echoing in the empty room like a death sentence. "I'm going to show them what happens when you awaken the true owner of hell. As of today, I'm the one who dictates the rules, and I won't leave them even the ashes." The awakening of the beast. Liam O'Connell left the recovery room with a transformed face. The vulnerability and tears of the last few minutes had evaporated, giving way to a surgical coldness. His steps echoed in the hallway like hammer blows. Davis, who was waiting outside, immediately stood at attention, noticing the aura of death emanating from his boss. "Davis," Liam said without stopping, "I want the assault team to position themselves. We're no longer gathering information. We're executing." "Sir, Robert and Michael are in a private meeting at the Bay Street Club celebrating the quarterly close," Davis reported, matching the magnate's quick pace. "They think you're still buried in your office or your fancy restaurant. They have no idea we found Miss Olivia." Liam stopped in front of a large window overlooking the city. The sun was just beginning to peek over the Toronto skyline, painting the sky a violent red. "They think they have me cornered with their fake evidence," Liam murmured, his voice dropping to a lethal register. "They don't know I bought the Summit Grill building last night. They don't know I have the complete file of their original fraud that my wife paid to hide. And most importantly, they don't know they just turned a businessman into a butcher." He pulled out his phone and dialed a high-priority number. "Crown Prosecutor, Liam O'Connell speaking." "Yes, the same. I have a package of evidence involving money laundering, aggravated extortion, and attempted murder. I want arrest warrants ready within an hour. I don't care who you have to wake up. If the judge doesn't sign, I'll buy the courthouse myself." Liam returned to the entrance of the neonatal ICU before leaving. Through the glass, he saw the small incubator where his son, a tiny being connected to wires, fought for every breath of air. The child had his father's strong features and his mother's unbreakable resilience. "Resist, little one," Liam whispered against the glass. "Your daddy is going to clean up the world, so you and your mom never have to be afraid again." Minutes later, 3 black-armored SUVs sped out of the hospital. Liam was in the back seat, reviewing a tablet with his enemy's final bank movements. Robert and Michael had made a fatal mistake, underestimating the love of a man who has nothing to lose because he has already regained everything. The operation was swift and silent. As the sun finished rising, O'Connell's SUVs and 2 OPP cruisers intercepted the former partners in the club's private parking lot. Robert, fat and arrogant, dropped his whiskey glass upon seeing Liam get out of the vehicle. Michael tried to run, but Davis tackled him to the pavement before he took 3 steps. Liam approached Robert, who was trembling like a leaf. Liam, this is a misunderstanding. We can negotiate," Robert stammered. Liam didn't say a word. He delivered a dry punch to the stomach that knocked the wind out of him, then leaned over and whispered in his ear, "Olivia Smith sends her regards from the hospital. She survived, and now you two are going to wish you were never born. You're not going to a luxury cell, Robert. You're going to the general population where prisoners know very well what happens to those who touch a pregnant woman." As the police led them away in handcuffs, Liam watched as their paper empires crumbled. He had recovered the evidence. He had destroyed his enemies, and for the first time in 9 months, he could breathe without feeling ashes in his lungs. The price of redemption 3 months later. The O'Connell mansion in Oak Ridge Hills was no longer the cold, silent mausoleum it once was. The garden was full of fresh flowers, and the air vibrated with a new energy. On the terrace, in the shade of a large oak, Olivia sat in a wicker rocking chair. She wore a white silk dress that highlighted her recovered beauty, although her hands still bore small scars, marks she refused to erase with laser surgery because they said she was a survivor. In her arms slept Liam Jr., the baby, who had spent 6 weeks in the incubator, was now strong and healthy, with rosy cheeks that were the center of his parents' universe. Liam came out to the terrace, taking off his suit jacket, approached from behind, and kissed his wife's crown. Then he stroked the baby's tiny hand with his index finger. "How are my treasures?" Liam asked, his voice filled with a tenderness no one in the business world would believe possible. "We're good, Liam," Olivia replied, giving him a radiant smile. "Sarah called a while ago. She says the remodeling of the new restaurant is going wonderfully. The employees can't believe they're now business partners." Liam sat beside her. After the storm, his first action was to close the Summit Grill, Firemark with a lawsuit that left him on the street, and reopen the place under the name Valeria's Miracle, handing over management and part of the shares to Sarah and his wife's former colleagues who helped her when she had nothing. "It's the least I could do," Liam said, taking Olivia's hand. "But none of that makes up for what you went through. Sometimes I wake up at night and still see you in that orange alley." Olivia placed a hand on his cheek, stopping his words. "That orange uniform is in the past, Liam. It was the price I paid for us to be here today. Don't see it as a humiliation. See it as our armor. It taught me that I am stronger than I thought, and it taught me that you were worth every drop of sweat." Liam pulled her closer, embracing her and the baby in a protective circle. The Man of Steel had learned that true power did not reside in bank accounts or 4-0-story buildings, but in the ability to sacrifice for what one loves. "I promise you," Liam whispered, looking at the city skyline he once wanted to conquer, and now simply inhabited with peace, "that the rest of my life will be to serve you and our son. Never again will you be alone. Never again will there be secrets." Olivia rested her head on her husband's shoulder. The afternoon sun bathed the scene in a golden light. The story that began with a fake divorce, an invented betrayal, and a humiliating cleaning uniform ended there with the victory of love over ambition. Liam O'Connell, the magnate who had everything, finally understood that he was only truly rich the day he found his wife cleaning tables in the dark, because that day his heart beat again. Justice had been served. The enemies were behind bars, and the family was united. The ghost of the orange uniform could finally rest in peace.